We're going to go over the 3A and 4A classification season previews today, and we're also going to talk about how you can get more content. All that and more on this episode of the Headlines. Alright, so let's start out with the 3A South. The 3A South comes down to Juan Diego, and yes, more Juan Diego. So let's talk about Juan Diego. Juan Diego, you better be prepared to stop the run or they will ram it down your throat. Specifically, they have two great running backs in Hunter Easterly and Tristan Tenotsi. Easterly last year had 971 yards and 11 touchdowns, and Tenotsi added another 1,190 to go with 13 touchdowns. In my opinion, this is the best running back duo in high school football. And as I said, if you're not ready to stop the run, you're going to have some problems if you play Juan Diego. The next team in the 3A South I want to talk about is Juab. Juab, what it comes down to, in order for them to compete, they need a great year out of their quarterback, Easton Wright. And they also need to continue to play defense the way they did last year, only giving up 16.3 points per game, which was one of the best marks in all of the 3A classification last year. Next on my list is Summit Academy. Summit Academy doesn't have as much experience as you would like to see out of a possible contender, but they really are talented. They have kids that are young and looking to grow, and have that mentality in their program to help them be as successful as they can be and really grow as players. Next team on my list in the 3A South is Manti. Manti is a team that's going to have to deal with two issues. They've got low program participation, which plainly put, they don't have a lot of kids in their program. And so they're going to have to deal with that. They're going to have to deal with the pains of that. Usually that deals with not being able to finish games very well because your kids are tired and things like that. The other issue they're going to have to deal with is they have some D-line issues. Their defensive line is not as good as it should be, which could make for a rough year. Next team on my list is North Sanpete. At some point you have to find ways to put the ball in the end zone. They struggled with this last year, averaging 11.5 points per game. And if they can't find a remedy, I expect them to struggle down the stretch in 2018. Richfield. Richfield's going to have a new head coach this year, and they're going to be work in progress throughout the season. The bright spot, if you will, they have a quarterback named Emmett Hafen, who had a great year last year, and if he progresses and improves, could be a bright spot for them and get them in a better spot this year. Players to watch. I've already mentioned a couple of these, but we're going to go over them real quick. The first ones I want to talk about again are Easterly and Tenotsi. Those are the running backs from Juan Diego that I talked about. Over 2,000 combined yards last year, and over 20 touchdowns combined. Look for them to have another great year, and then if that happens, it's going to be really tough to stop Juan Diego. Next player on my list is Talmadge Brown. He's a running back from Summit Academy. Look for him to have a great year. He's going to have to shoulder more of the load this year, which means he's going to have a better year. And then the last one on my list is Emmett Hafen, quarterback from Richfield. Just really intriguing. Had a good year last year. One thing that you're going to notice in these videos is I love young quarterbacks, especially those quarterbacks who have shown grit and determination. They're going to step up and take that next level. And he's one of those kids. Let's talk about my picks in the 3A South. I've got Juan Diego winning the region, and I don't expect it to be close. Juab's a good football team, but I really think Juan Diego's just that good. They're in that next tier above everyone else. The second spot I have Juab, followed up by Summit Academy, Manti, Richfield, and then North Sanpete. My dark horse for the 3A South is Summit Academy. As I said earlier, I believe they're really talented. They're just really young and inexperienced. But if those kids step up and really play well in the biggest and brightest moments, they can definitely compete with Juan Diego for that region title. All right, let's move on to the 3A North. The 3A North comes down to the Morgan Bears and how well their young players contribute to some of the stars that they have returning. They're going to be breaking in a new quarterback this year. It'll be interesting to see how he develops and how he progresses throughout the year. They have a large and talented junior class, which will lead the way. I also expect another All-State performance from wide receiver Tyson Hurd. He's one of the top players, in my opinion, in the 3A classification. Next team on my list is Judge Memorial. Judge Memorial has limited numbers in the fold, but if the Bulldogs can get better play out of the quarterback position, in particular Noah Taylor, I can see them being able to compete with Morgan. They do need to improve their scoring defense. They need to give up some fewer points. And if they do those things, I really believe they'll be in contention for the 3A North. Next team on my list is Grantsville. Grantsville is going to be breaking in a new quarterback, which means they'll really need to rely on running back Parker Thomas to help carry the offensive load. They do have a veteran offensive line, and if they're able to get quality play out of the quarterback position, I think they'll have a great year and really possibly make some noise in the playoffs. Next team on my list is Emory. Emory has quality returning starters on offense, led by their quarterback Kyle Stilson. To give you an idea of what type of year Stilson had last year, 1,745 yards passing with 12 touchdowns. I really believe he'll be able to take that next step and help Emory have a better year than they had last year. Let's talk about Union. Union's a team that has a good quarterback in Lincoln Labrum. If he takes his game to the next level, they could really put themselves in a great position and possibly make some noise in the playoffs. Some of the other players to look at there, Chase Burchell, wide receiver, had over 400 yards last year and 7 touchdowns. And Mason Eldridge, look for him to be one of your breakout athletes this year at the running back position. The big thing with Union, though, they do need to improve defensively, and if they're able to do that, that's really when they will take that next step. Last one on my list is Carbon. The Dinos must get better offensively. In order to do that, they must cut down on the number of mistakes and get more explosive plays. So this is that concept of offensive efficiency that I've talked about in previous previews, is that cut down on the mistakes, find ways to score better and more efficiently, and you'll be in good shape. Now, both of those things can be helped with a good year from their quarterback, Noah Jones. Young kid, taking the reins this year, going to have to shoulder a lot of the load, but if he has a great year, Carbon can definitely put themselves in a better spot than they were at last year. Players to watch. Tyson Hurd, wide receiver from Morgan. Talked a little bit about him. He's an all-state caliber player. I fully expect him to do the same thing this year and have a great year. Lincoln Labrum, quarterback from Union. Again, possible all-state candidate. I think he's going to have a great year and improve on the numbers that he put up last year. Parker Thomas, running back from Grantsville. Parker Thomas, running back from Grantsville. Again, he's going to shoulder a lot of that load as Grantsville's breaking in a new quarterback. So I think he's going to have a good year and really make an impact for them. Last player on my list is Kyle Stilson, quarterback from Emory. If he's able to take that next step and get better and improve his game, especially in terms of efficiency, stop turning the ball over, fewer interceptions and things of that nature, I think he'll be in great shape. Okay, let's talk about my picks for the 3A North. I have Morgan picked to win it, followed by Judge Memorial, Union, Grantsville, Emory, and Carbon. My dark horse for the 3A North is Union. Union has one of the best quarterbacks in 3A, and if Lincoln Labrum, who we talked about earlier, gets hot, he'll help accelerate the Cougars' chances at winning that region title. All right, we're on to 4A. And with the 4A, 5A, and 6A classifications, obviously we've got more teams, and so we've got regions we're actually going to talk about. So when we start with the 4A, we're going to actually start with Region 12. Region 12 is the teams that I call the north of the 4A. The first team we want to start out talking about is Bear River. Bear River needs to focus on execution and limiting turnovers on offense. This will be helped by their quarterback Brady Brown having a better year. Last year he had a good year, but if he takes that next step, that's really what's going to help those two things. He had 1,629 yards last year with 9 touchdowns. The other player we want to talk about with Bear River is on the defensive side of the ball. Parker Coombs had 43 tackles last year and 3 interceptions. So look for him to have an impact on the defensive side of football. Next is Green Canyon. Green Canyon has a lot of experience. They only had 4 seniors last year because they were first year school, so that's fairly typical of that. They must improve their scoring D. Last year they were at 34.8 points per game. They need to improve that number if they really want to take that next step towards competing for a region title. Some of the players I want to call out are Caden Patterson. He's a linebacker. Last year had 63 tackles and 3 sacks. He is primed to help them with that scoring defense issue and give up fewer points this year. Joe Digert, he's their quarterback. 1,596 yards last year to go with 16 touchdowns. Again, offensive efficiency is always a must, and especially from the quarterback position. Don't turn the ball over. Big chunk plays, and you'll win a lot of ball games. Logan is the next team I want to preview. They're going to have a new head coach this year, and they're also shifting to a spread offense. A little different for them over the last couple of years, but hopefully that will be helped by the fact that they've got Johnny Parkinson back at quarterback. He actually played in California last year, I guess, and moved out of state for a little bit, but he's actually back in the fold. In 2016, the last time he played for Logan, he had 1,660 yards and 9 touchdowns. They're another team, again, that needs to get better on the defensive side of the football in order to be competitive. They gave up almost 36 points last year. That definitely needs to come down. Mountain Crest. Mountain Crest is young, but extremely talented. The only place they're not young is their quarterback. And they've got Brady Hall coming back. He's a 3-year starter. Last year had 2,942 yards to go with 30 touchdowns. I actually got to watch him in their playoff game against Salem Hills, and he's a fantastic player, and I fully expect he's going to have a great year and help Mountain Crest win Region 12. Other player I want to talk about with Mountain Crest is their all-state safety Jace Dart, 85 tackles and 3 sacks in 2017. They're one of the few teams I'm going to discuss in this region that doesn't have the issue of getting better defensively. They should be very stout on the defensive side of the ball. Skyview. Skyview is very similar to Mountain Crest. Young, they lost a lot of starters off of last year's team, but they're extremely talented, led by Mason Falslev. He's going to switch from wide receiver to play quarterback this year, so that's going to be a fun experiment to see. I plan on seeing them play against Springville. I believe it's week 3 of the year. Can't remember exactly what week that is, but I look forward to seeing him play in person. They must have the young players develop in order to compete for a region title and really take it to Mountain Crest. My personal feeling is that that will happen, and you're going to have possibly a game where they face each other that could determine the region champion. One more player I want to call out for Skyview is Caleb Christensen. He's a defensive back, all-stater, had 8 interceptions in 2017. And so just one of those guys that you want to be careful what you do on the offensive side of the ball, because he might make you pay if you make mistakes. The last team from Region 12 we want to talk about is Ridgeline. Ridgeline has Breck Jackson back to play quarterback this year. Had 552 yards and 5 touchdowns last year. Really kind of expect him to up his game and get better this year. Junior DeMooney will have a big year at safety for them. They've got a great returning offensive line. They really need them to take the lead on that side of the ball and really help Ridgeline score some points. All right, players to watch in Region 12. Brady Hall, quarterback from Mountain Crest. We talked about him when we talked about Mountain Crest. One of the better players in all 4A. Jay Start, safety from Mountain Crest. Mason Falslove, quarterback from Skyview. Caleb Christensen, defensive back, Skyview. Breck Jackson, quarterback Ridgeline. Caden Patterson, linebacker, Bear River. My picks for Region 12. I've got Mountain Crest winning this region, followed closely by Skyview. And it could very well come down to the head-to-head matchup there on who actually wins the region. Looking forward to that exciting game later on in the year. Third, I have Ridgeline. 4, Green Canyon. 5, Bear River. And 6 is Logan. My dark horse out of Region 12 is Ridgeline. Ridgeline could put it all together with their young quarterback, Breck Jackson. If they're able to do that, get that great offensive line to give them a sturdy foundation, they could win Region 12. Region 11, let's talk about it. Region 11 is a group of teams that I believe sometimes is overlooked, but we're going to talk about one of their teams having a real shot, possibly at a state championship if things go their way. The first team I do want to talk about out of Region 11 is Tooele. Tooele needs to get better defensively. You're kind of seeing a theme with this 4A video, but a lot of these teams gave up a lot of points. And maybe that's to say that most of the offenses are, pretty awesome in 4A. I don't, that's debatable. But a lot of these teams need to get better defensively, and Tooele is one of those. 33.2 points per game, which ranked 20th in 4A. They're going to switch to a 3-4 defense to help with that. So we'll have to see what that looks like and if that actually accomplishes what the coaches hope it does. You've got a position change for running back Austin Miono. My understanding is he played quarterback for them last year, so he's going to switch over and play some running back this year. And so look and see how that works out for them. The other player to watch is defensive lineman Thad Torgensen. Had 43 tackles last year to go with 5.5 sacks. Bonneville. Let's talk about Bonneville. They're looking to improve on their runner-up finish in Region 11 last year. In order to do that, they will need to limit the amount of turnovers and maximize their efficiency. So again, that's a theme we've talked about. That's, again, like I said, limit the mistakes, that's the turnovers. And then get those big chunk plays. Find ways to put more points on the board. They do have, however, some quarterback questions they need to answer, and that could all play into where they actually finish. My feeling there is if they answer those quarterback questions and whoever gets the job steps up, they'll be in great shape. If not, it could be an interesting year for the Lakers. One other player to look at when you're watching Bonneville is linebacker Riker Jensen. Had 96 tackles and 4 interceptions last year. One of those stud linebackers that you always fear across the middle. Park City is the next team up. They must focus on offensive efficiency. So again, limit those turnovers, big chunk plays, and just make sure that you're doing everything you can to get the most out of your offense. Part of their struggle last year is they had a tendency of falling apart in the second half of games. That's something that they need to address. There's lots of different ways you can do that. Most of the time, it's really just focusing on executing the same things you did in the first half and whatever modifications or changes you make to the game plan at halftime, and really coming out and having a focus on what needs to be done to win the football game. One player I'm excited to look at for Park City is their quarterback, Mark McCurdy. Had over 1,300 yards passing last year with 15 touchdowns, over 500 rush yards, another 3 touchdowns there. I want to see him progress and want to see him get better. If he does and he takes his game to the next level, you could well see Park City challenge and compete for this region. Ogden Tigers. Some O-line questions need to be answered for Ogden. I believe they'll go as their offensive line goes, and so one thing that could help their offense overall is they do have a transfer from Syracuse coming in, and in Bo DeVries. He's going to play quarterback for them. It could help that they have a better solution at quarterback. Some of the other players to watch for them is Riley Hansen, over 500 yards rushing last year at the running back spot, 7 touchdowns. And then another player is Irving Gastelum, over 700 yards receiving and 5 touchdowns. Ben Lomond, let's talk about them. Ben Lomond had a rough go last year offensively. They were second to last in points per game in 4A. That obviously needs to improve. At some point you need to just find a way to get the ball in the end zone. My main solution to that is typically get better play out of your quarterback. They have some quarterback issues they need to resolve, and if they can do that, that will definitely help with that. One player to watch is running back Xander Kafal, 474 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns last year. He's going to get more of the workload this year, so look for him to have a better year. Last team I want to talk about in Region 11 is Stansbury. Stansbury is a great offensive football team last year, led by their fullback Silas Young. He's a player that I fully expect to have another great year this year. Last year he had over 1,400 yards and 21 touchdowns. That's a monster year. And I fully expect him to have another great year just like that. They will be breaking in a new quarterback in Austin Woodhouse. So that will be something to watch and see how he develops with the rest of the team. Their offense averaged 32.1 points per game in 2017. That was 5th in the 4A classification. And I fully expect them to be able to duplicate that, and they're going to have a great year. Players to watch in Region 11. Riker Jensen, linebacker from Bonneville. Silas Young, fullback from Stansbury. Bo DeVries, quarterback Ogden. Mark McCurdy, quarterback Park City. And then Thad Torgensen, defensive lineman from Tooele. All of those players, I believe, will have an impact on how their teams do this year, and look for them in the box scores. My picks for Region 11. I'm picking Stansbury to win this region, followed by Bonneville, Tooele, Ogden, Park City, and Ben Lomond. My dark horse for Region 11 is Tooele. If they see the necessary improvement on the defensive side of the football and their new quarterback steps up, they will be in the race for this region. I think that they have the talent necessary. They just need to improve on that defensive side of the ball and at the quarterback position, and they'll be in great shape in 2018. All right, moving on to Region 10. Region 10 is the Utah County Bunch plus Uinta. This region is fascinating to me. I grew up in Spanish Fork. I've gone to many Salem Hills high school football games the last couple of years, so I know a little bit more about this region probably than some of the others, but let's dive in. The first team we want to talk about is Orem. When we talk about Orem High School football, we have to talk about the fact that Orem is loaded. They have at least 5, and I say at least 5 because those are the ones that I know of for sure that are going to play Division I football next year. But they could have more kids sign Division I scholarship offers when all is said and done this year. But those 5 players I'm going to talk about in more depth because they are some of the best players in the state. The 2 for sure that I want to discuss in this video though are Puka Nacua, wide receiver. Had an insane year last year. I had the opportunity to see him play 3 or 4 times, and he is legitimately a top recruit in the country. On top of, I would not be surprised to see him play professionally if he chooses to do so. Let's talk about his year last year. 1,691 yards receiving to go with 24 touchdowns. What else can be said about that? That's amazing. That's a fantastic year from a receiver. The second player I want to talk about from Orem is Cooper Lega. Again, I got to see Cooper play 3 or 4 times last year. Very athletic, very smart player. Had over 5,000 total yards last year, just under 4,000 passing to go with a little over 1,000 yards rushing, and 52 total touchdowns. The kid's amazing. Like I said, he's a special athlete. He's won state championship last year with Orem High School in football, as well as a track and field state championship in the javelin. In fact, I think he's won 2 of those. And then I believe he won a state championship wrestling. So the kid is a fantastic athlete, and he's just fun to watch. And so I look forward to seeing them this week, actually. I'm going to the Bingham at Orem game, and so I will put out a video on that and share my thoughts about that game. On to the next team, though. We're going to talk about Spanish Fork. Spanish Fork, again, one of those 4A teams, must improve defensively in order to take that next step. Now, they weren't as bad as, maybe I'm making it sound. They were 12th in 4A last year, but in order to really compete with Orem, to compete with those top teams in 4A, they're going to need that to be in the 5th or 6th range to really take it to that next level. Now, some of the players to watch for Spanish Fork is wide receiver Noah Conway, over 600 yards receiving last year, 6 touchdowns. Quality athlete. Looking forward to seeing his game against Orem later in the year. The last player for Spanish Fork that I'm really intrigued by is their running back, Kimball Morley. Ran for 4 touchdowns last year. He's going to get a lot more of the load this year, so I look forward to him taking that next step. Salem Hills. Now, this is a team I have a little bit more experience with. I've gone to a lot more of their games the last couple of years. My dad was the athletic director there for a couple of years, helped them coaching. So I really feel akin to them, and I really enjoy going to their games, and I've done that for the last couple of years, like I said. They're a team that has a lot of depth. They're quality athletes. The only issue that I see for them is they do have to find someone to play quarterback for them. That's kind of up in the air at the moment. And a lot of their offense will hinge on who that is and how well that person plays. Not to put too much pressure on the quarterback position, but I really believe some of the elite football teams in the state are led by quarterbacks who not only efficient, but they make big plays. And that'll be the question for Salem Hills entering the 2018 season, is who that guy's going to be. Now, there are some players I do want to see play for Salem Hills. One of those is offensive lineman John Nelson. He's a possible D1 athlete. I know he's getting some looks from some people, not only in the state of Utah, but outside the state of Utah. So it'll be interesting to see how I evaluate his talents. It'll be fun to just kind of see how he plays. Second player on the list for Salem Hills that I'm intrigued by is wide receiver Reed Johnson. Extremely talented young kid. He's only going to be a sophomore this year. I look forward to him having a great year and helping Salem Hills' offense get moving in the right direction. Let's talk about Payson. Payson needs to be better on the offensive side of the football. They need to get more explosive plays out of their offense. Now, a lot of that will come down to the quarterback position, and they will have a new face there. So Again, it'll come down to who that person is and how well they play is how their offense will go. Now, they do have something to help that new quarterback. They've got an offensive line that's very capable. They just need that little assist from the skills position players to be better on offense. Player for Payson that I'm interested in looking at this year and watching some film is going to be Landon Westover. He scored 3 touchdowns last year. Look for him to have a little bit better year and really help whoever's playing quarterback for Payson. Mountain View is the next team on the list that I want to cover. Mountain View, they're a young, inexperienced football team. Those young players are really going to have to step up if they want to make the playoffs again this year. Some of the players to look at, quarterback Deuce Anderson. Deuce, if he can eliminate some of the turnovers that plagued him last year, I think they'll be in good shape. They'll be much better offensively, and that's kind of the key. Defensive lineman Elwood Afalava, young kid, but extremely talented. I look for him to have a good year and lead that defense to be better. Last team from Region 10 we want to talk about is Uinta. Uinta will have a new coach this year, so he's going to bring with him a new system. Last year they were running a lot of triple option, mainly out of Wishbone. So it'll be interesting to see how they adapt to a new offense and new face leading the way. Intriguing fact with Uinta is they have zero returning starters. Zero. They're the only team that I've done all the teams that will play this year. They're the only one that has that situation. So it'll be really interesting to see how they handle that. Some of the players that I'm interested in looking at for Uinta, running backs Ryland Spencer and Cade Lawrence. They're the guys offensively, so I look forward to seeing how they develop and how what kind of year they have. All right, players to watch in Region 10. We've talked about Worms, guys. Basically, anyone on that roster is worth watching, but for sure the 2 that I mentioned in this video, and then there's a good list of other guys that they have on their roster as well. But for sure, Worms guys, John Nielsen, offensive lineman from Salem Hills, Noah Conway, receiver from Spanish Fork, Reed Johnson, receiver from Salem Hills. Those are my guys that I really want to see this year. My picks. I have Orem winning this region, followed by Salem Hills, Spanish Fork, Payson, Mountain View, and then Uinta. My dark horse in Region 10. Now I know I picked them number 2 in this region, but really Orem is that good that if anyone is able to knock them off, it would seem like a world-shattering event. But Salem Hills. So Salem Hills, if they're able to get someone playing quarterback and being efficient, helping their offense be what it can be, they are good enough on both sides of the ball with their skill position players and their offense and defensive lines that they could challenge Orem if they get great play out of their quarterback position. And so that's what we're going to watch in Region 10 in 2018. Okay, going down south for Region 9. These are all those southern schools that not many people get to see play unless you live down there. But we're going to talk about all of them. Let's talk about Pineview first. Pineview will have a new offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator this year, which is kind of significant because if you look at their statistics and how they did last year, they were actually pretty awesome. They had the number 1 offense in 4A, and their defense was above, definitely above average. They were above the middle of the pack. So, fun, fascinating fact though, with the new offensive coordinator at Pineview, they hired former BYU head football coach Gary Croton as their offensive coordinator. So if you want to see some good offensive football, you might want to watch Pineview a little bit. The new hires on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, I think, will be more impactful as you see postseason play. It'll be really interesting to see how those teams perform with those new systems in place. They're talented enough where I think they can work out some of the kinks and be just fine in region play. but it really will come down to the postseason. Some players I'm interested in seeing for Pineview, I'll actually be at one of their games this year, going down to St. George to see them play Hurricane sometime in late September, early October, I recall. But all right, some of the players worth looking at for Pineview. I'm actually going to be at one of their games this year, which is going down to St. George as they play Hurricane, I think is the game that we've decided to go to there. But their quarterback, Dallin Brown, 492 yards passing, 6 touchdowns, over 800 yards rushing as well with 18 touchdowns. I look forward to seeing how his game develops and if he can take that next step forward. Defensive end, Brooks Maley is a BYU commit. So another one of those D1 college guys that I want to take a look at and see my thoughts on, and see if I'm as high on him as everyone else. Had 91 tackles last year and 2 sacks. Just look forward to seeing how well he helps that defensive line be dominant this year. All right, let's talk about Dixie. The thing we want to talk about with Dixie is that Blaine Moncrief is back as the head coach at Dixie High School. He had quite a successful run several years ago, and so I looked to see how he's able to get back into things and get the ball rolling again for them. They're a very young team. They're going to have to rely on those young players this year quite a bit. And if those young players can perform and play well, then I think they're going to be in great shape. Some of the players I'm interested to look at and look for is wide receiver Nate Mahi. Had over 400 yards receiving last year to go with 6 touchdowns. Linebacker Jake Staley, 51 tackles, 2 interceptions and a sack. These are some of those players that they've actually got returning starters, and I just really want to see them take the next level and help Dixie get over the hump and compete for one of those top 2 spots in this region. Next on my list is Desert Hills. 2 things that they'll need to compete with Pineview at the top of that region is they're going to need quarterback play. They've got quarterback Logan Wilstead coming in. He's the younger brother of Cody Wilstead, which some people might know. He's played college football and whatnot. So they're going to need Logan to step up and fill those shoes and really help their offense be the type of offense that they're used to. The other thing they'll need to be competitive this year is they're going to need to improve their scoring defense. They need to give up fewer points, especially with a new quarterback coming in. They're definitely going to need that to be competitive this year. Now, you'll see a recurring theme here in Region 9. A lot of coaching changes. Desert Hills is one of those teams that they will have a new head coach as well, and he'll be implementing his new system this year. So that's one thing to watch with Desert Hills. And Snow Canyon has some quarterback questions that they're going to need to answer this year. They had a great year defensively last year, so if they're able to continue that, that should help minimize any issues that they have at the quarterback spot. But they really need to figure out who's going to play quarterback for them and how that individual plays could really depend on what type of year that they have. 2 players I am fascinated to look at for Snow Canyon are linebacker Miles Reynolds. Had 84 tackles last year, which led the team. And then safety Brock Nowatzki, 36 tackles and 2 interceptions last year. Really look forward to how they develop and if they can continue helping that defense be one of the best in 4A. All right, Cedar City. Cedar City's intriguing for the simple fact that they've got 17 returning starters this year. So they've got a lot of experience. What it will come down to for them is execution and big plays. They need to get some big plays on offense and they need to limit some big plays on defense. And if they're able to do those 2 things, I think they're going to have a great year on both sides of the ball. The execution comes more with their offense. At times they've struggled to put points on the board the last couple of years, and that's important for them moving forward. Some of the players I'm fascinated to watch this year for them: running back Drake Fakahua, over 300 yards rushing last year. Defensive tackle Bryce Crowley, 38 tackles and a sack. Again, just two players that I think could take that next step forward and help Cedar City in 2018. Canyon View. What can we say about Canyon View that other than at some point you need to be able to put the ball in the end zone and score some points. They averaged 5.8 points per game last year. And what I would say is teams that struggle on offense really just need to get back to the basics. Focus on being more simplistic in what you do and getting that down first, and then kind of moving yourself forward and helping the kids you have in your program be as successful as possible. There is one kid that I'm interested in seeing how he plays this year. That's defensive back Brad Lowry, 51 tackles last year. I just look forward to seeing how he develops and if he can help his team be better this year. Hurricane. Hurricane has a new head coach. There's that theme again. Skyler Miller. He actually was an assistant there for years and has come back to be the head coach. So he's going to implement a new system and get his young team that doesn't have a lot of experience, but he's going to get them going. They need to score the ball. Again, another team with some offensive issues. They average just over 16 points per game, so not quite as bad as Canyon View, but that definitely needs to improve if they want to have a better season this year and make the playoffs in 2018. Now, one of their players that I'm interested in looking at is safety Ray Cordova. Had 22 tackles and an interception last year. Just want to see him take that next level, or take that next leap and really get better. And I think that'll help their defense out a lot. Players to watch in Region 9. So I've got Dallin Brown, he's the quarterback from Pineview. Brooks Maley, defensive end from Pineview. Logan Wilstead, quarterback from Desert Hills. Nate Mahi, wide receiver from Dixie. And Miles Reynolds, linebacker from Snow Canyon. My picks for Region 9 are Pineview to win the region, Desert Hills, Dixie, Snow Canyon, Hurricane, Cedar City, and Canyon View. My dark horse for Region 9 is Dixie. As I talked about earlier in the video with Dixie, they've got a lot of young talent. And if that young talent plays as well as I believe they're capable of playing, they will definitely be in contention for this region and could very well win it. There's the way you want to kind of look at this region is you've got those top three teams. You got Pineview, Desert Hills, and Dixie, and they're all going to be kind of slugging it out to see who wins. And if Dixie can get those young players to play well and play well at the right moments, then they will be in good shape and really have a possible region championship at the end of 2018. So that does it for 3A and 4A previews. If you liked the video, please subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and also follow me on social. The Headlinesman Facebook page is ready to go, as well as you can follow me on Twitter as well. Have a good night.